Welcome to A to Z Jobs, the podcast that delves into the fascinating world of careers, one profession at a time.
In each episode, we'll deep dive into a specific profession, exploring its history, requirements, challenges, and rewards.
So get ready to expand your horizons, challenge your perceptions, and discover a world of possibilities. I'm Roxy,
And I'm Nate.
and we're excited to host you on this journey.
In this week's podcast, we're excited for you to meet Amy. Amy is an award-winning television producer who practically overnight swapped her careers and became a published author. In this episode, you're going to hear about some of her time management strategies, some tips on becoming published, and some fantastic insight into what it takes to become an author.
Hello, Amy, and welcome to our podcast.
Hi, thank you very much. Very exciting.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for taking the time tonight. We'll jump straight in and ask you the first question of what do you do for a living?
I am an author, and I can officially say that now because my first full-length novel is coming out in a couple of weeks. So, a few weeks, 3 weeks yesterday. So, it's counting. So yeah, I can officially say that now.
That must be so exciting.
It's really exciting, and it's just kind of, I don't know. It's kind of still seems a little fantastical. I think when I see it on a shelf in a shop, that will be a really good moment. And, then I'll believe then I'll believe it, 'cause it's just kind of just I don't know. It was always what I wanted to happen, but so many people don't have it happen. So to actually get to that point is like, "Oh, how'd that happen?" And, yeah, it's very exciting, but also I'm still kind of in this, very, like, disbelieving mode that in 3 weeks' time, there's gonna be a book out I wrote. And people have already read it because, some people because obviously publishers and I've got a big publisher, I'm published by Simon& and Schuster, so, it's one of the big 5 publishers, and, so they send out ARC, advanced reader copies and stuff. So there's already people who've read it. There's already people who've reviewed it on Goodreads and Instagram and stuff like that. So I've already started seeing people reading the book and giving their opinion on it and stuff like that. Mostly has been positive. So that
Yeah, I was going to ask, what's the feedback been? You're
it's
still smiling, so it must be pretty good feedback.
I'm pretty good about feedback. Before I was an author, I worked in television and I worked as a promo producer. So I got feedback
Oh,
constantly for
yeah.
years. And I also was a creative leader. So I used to have a team as well. So I was creative director at Foxtel for a while, and then I was like a creative team leader at Channel 9. And so I had a team under me. So I was used to giving feedback as well. So I'm kind of I'm kind of okay with it. I mean, no one's ever 100% okay with feedback, and you're always kinda gonna go, "Hmm." But I don't kind of get very stressed or upset about it too much because I understand everybody's different. One person's gonna dig it and one person's not gonna dig it, and, that's just the way it is, and that's the way with any kind of creativity or art. Some people love it, some people don't. So, I'm you know, pretty okay with that. But having said that, if I get lots of negative reviews, I'm gonna be gutted.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But, I'm pretty pragmatic about it.
What genre are you writing in? What's your vibe?
When I first started this journey, I thought I was gonna write paranormal romance, um, which I did. I wrote a paranormal romance, which I'm passionate about, and it's very, very difficult to get paranormal romance, published in Australia. There are some boutique publishers, some small press publishers that do it, but for the most part, it's quite tricky. And my paranormal romance is even trickier because it's not fae and shifters and all the things that people love, all the hot werewolves and stuff. It's a couple of humans who are like paranormal investigators and psychics, so it's very real world. So it's kind of, in between. It's kind of a bit genre jumping. But I always thought I was gonna. That's what I plan to do, and I still I have that book sitting literally ready to be published, covered, edited, everything. but then this other book came along, so I had to like put brakes on my independent publishing idea and publish a book through traditional publishing. I keep pointing over there because I got my little banner up. Uh, but then I started writing short stories for Romance Writers of Australia. I joined Romance Writers of Australia, which is a fantastic organisation. And I started writing short stories because they do anthologies every year, and it's a really great opportunity. It's a competition, and it's a really great opportunity to enter, to get feedback, and if you get in, you get published in a proper book anthology. And so the first little story I wrote for them, it's a 3,000 word story, was a rom com, and it got in. So it was in the book, the first one I wrote, and I really enjoyed it. And then the story that is now Sit Stay Love, that's going to come out soon, just sort of came off. I think I wrote another one. No, I might have written. I can't remember. Anyway, I've got two published with Romance Writers of Australia. I've got another two in their upcoming anthology coming out in August, both 100% rom-coms about lollipops. Um, but this book then just kind of came out of that. So it was a bit of a surprise to me that I suddenly started writing this very cute rom-com set in a rescue animal shelter with super this it's a very quite sweet, fun, cute story. But I really love writing that stuff. But to be honest, I would probably write any kind of romance genre, mostly. Maybe not historical, but that's probably only because I'm really lazy and I just don't think I could do all that research. But I've written a small town rom com, which I really love. And that was hilarious because I've got goats in it. So, like, my entire Google thing was filled with goat feed and barns and everything because I was doing all that research. It was very, very weird. So, yeah. Anyway, I write romance and pretty much rom coms. I think I write rom coms now for the time being. But I will be writing a second book in the paranormal series at some point when I get a minute.
It's funny how in any artistic form you start in one direction and move in a very different one going forward. Like, I was very much sci-fi, wanting to make sci-fi films and everything, but I've ended up in mostly rom-com, now mum life challenges and mum life things I never thought I'd be involved in. I remember looking at weird alien shapes and forms and muscles, and now it's like following everything to do with mums and how they work and how that works. And it's amazing how you can have one idea of who you might be and it can completely shift, and then you can still enjoy doing something so out there. It's just awesome.
It is. It's really weird because I'm like a massive horror fan. Like, I love horror movies, love horror books, huge. So I always kind of like, oh, I'm gonna, work those two together, horror and romance. I don't know that that's going to gel or anybody's going to read it except me, but that was kind of like where I was coming at it from. And yeah, I ended up writing a cute rom com with full of animals.
It's brilliant. I love how you also started with anthologies. They're a form of a competition. It's also something I love doing in my spare time, is running short competitions to make films, because it's the only time I ever finish a film. And that's one of the greatest things about an artwork, is putting it out there, putting the deadline in place, and being a part of a big collective of people like an anthology is just such an awesome experience.
It
Um,
and the thing with it is that you do get, feedback. So, up until recently, I was entering a lot of competitions and, I've got, 4 stories published in anthologies, or 5 because 'cause I've got one in New Zealand as well. I always forget about that guy. And, I won the paranormal one that hasn't been published yet, won Best Light Paranormal at the, Romance Writers of America Awards. So that was kinda like, "What?" So I've had, like, and I've actually got a couple of things in the running at the Romance Writers of Australia Awards coming up. My kiss from my first kiss from my, paranormal just won first kiss in the, New Zealand Awards. So, but that kind of those when you start entering those when you're really just starting out, And I've only been doing this for about 4.5 years, so I am, technically really just starting out. They're a really fantastic opportunity to get feedback because you get often both author, but it depends on what the competition is. You may get reader feedback as well. So it's a really good opportunity because you get to people will talk to you about your craft, and they'll talk to you about character, and you can actually start to see where you can grow and learn. And I think competitions, if they have that element, if they don't have that element, I mean, it's just great to win something, and it looks very good on your writer CV, and all those things look good on your writer CV because, certainly publishers want to see that you're a serious writer. You're not just a one book wonder. They want to see that you're committed to your craft. If they're going to spend some coin on you, that they have a future with you.
Yeah.
So I think, just entering competitions and really sort of doing that kind of thing can be beneficial just on that level. But if it's a situation where you get feedback from publishers sometimes as well, it's great. It's invaluable. And then you also might get the opportunity to get published, and then you can say, "I'm published." And when you're out there pitching, it's so great to be able to say you've got something published, just a short story in an anthology. But it, I shouldn't say just a short story in an anthology because it's fantastically exciting. But it's great to go into a pitch and say, "I am published."
And have those connections already.
Exactly, yeah.
So when it comes to daily life then for an author, what does a day look like for you?
Well, I do this full time, so I'm lucky. Not a lot of authors do that. I don't know if I'm lucky or crazy. I quit my job, sold my unit, and moved back into my family home to pursue this. Um, and so that's so that's
Big change.
yeah, so it was kind of a bit wackadoo, and people were like, "You're doing what now?" And, but I just knew it was what I had to do, what I needed to do. I was, had a great job, but I needed to do this. And everybody was like, "Are you gonna give yourself a year? Are you gonna give it?" I'm like, "No, I'm just gonna do this until the dollar bills run out, and then, I'll probably still do this, but, I might have to work a little bit as well." So I'm lucky in that I write full time, and I treat it like a full-time job. I get up, I go and walk the dogs, I make myself some breakfast, come home. I'm usually in my office. I don't like to be any later than 10 in my office, so I like to be sitting at my computer by 10, hopefully a bit earlier sometimes, and I will always write to at least 4. And it depends where I'm sort of trekking. I might go a bit longer, sometimes I go a lot longer. But I find that that is usually a fairly substantial amount of time to be writing or editing, which I'm doing at the moment. At the moment, I'm editing, which is writing, but it's rewriting. Um, so yeah, that's basically my day. My day is literally sitting in front of the computer I'm talking to you from now, writing or researching or, you know, but mostly writing.
How did you get that discipline? How were you always, you always that personality type where you can just be that structured, or did you have to build up to that?
I don't think I am. I mean, I think when I first started doing this full time, it was 2019, and I actually traveled a whole lot. I went to San Diego Comic Con. It was amazing. Oh, it was amazing. I went to amazing. I went to Vancouver. I went to Texas. I went to Vegas. I traveled a lot in this year, and in between that, I was writing, and I was doing because I was really new at it. I was doing a lot of craft courses and writing. I was also doing a fair bit of freelance work at the time as well because I couldn't. It's very hard to disconnect from that concept of making money.
Mhm.
So it was a very, very difficult thing for my brain to stop trying to chase a shift, even though I didn't need to. I'd sold my unit, I had a little bit of wad, but it just, your brain is just like, oh, what? You better organize when's your next gig? Just get that at least booked in. It was
Yeah.
really hard. I don't do that anymore, but if they ring me, I'm like, sure, what have I got on? But like, I don't chase it anymore. Um, so I probably wasn't that disciplined at first, I got disciplined in 2020 because what the hell else was I gonna do?
Everybody was sitting at their computers in 2020.
I had a little thing on my wall where I was like, I'm going to write from here to here. I'm going to read craft books here. I'm going to read books here because that's super important to be a reader of other books. So I'd always broken it down, and I was pretty good, but I got better at it. And now I'm just probably too much. I probably went over to the other side, and I do, and I when I finish this edit and hand this manuscript in, which is due in September, I'm gonna take like a little because we have I don't know what I will be doing another book because I've been contracted to do another 2 books for Simon& and Schuster, but we haven't decided on the 3rd book yet. There's 2 books we're looking at, 2 pitches that are 1 book that is existing and 1 pitch that I've given them. So until this one's in and they're like, "Okay, we're not even talking about that one." So I'm really hoping that I can just and it's the first time I've felt like this, but I just feel like I need to take a couple of weeks and just go before I start again. But I say that, but I bet you I don't. Because when the ideas come, they come, and you just gotta go and quickly type them up, so but yeah, my day is very, just like a normal work day with probably more tea. I drink a lot of tea.
It's got to be hard to switch off when there's so many things creatively flowing around and keeping.
It's very hard. When I'm really in the thick of a story, I find it very, very hard. Being in the thick of an edit at the moment, I've got, about 2/3 of my dog just set up. About about a third to go. So I'm actually really going through. I'm really pleased, but it's waking me up in the middle of the night. It's very hard to because I'm thinking, oh, that bit that I did today, maybe this, so maybe I should move that bit to there, and then I need to. So it is quite hard to turn all that stuff off. I find it very, very difficult. I'm going to the Romance Writers of Australia conference in August, and one of the very big and wonderful Australian romance writers, a woman called Amy Andrews, is actually doing a lunchtime panel on burnout because
Mm.
she actually, I think, went through a little patch of it. She's quite prolific and very successful and such a lovely person and writes really good books. Um, and yeah, she's doing that, and I'm really interested to go read that because I don't feel like I'm burning out, but I feel like I'm the kind of person that could.
It is it's a very big thing in an industry that you're passionate about. So there's a very fine line with doing something you're incredibly passionate about, living and breathing it to the point that you pop. And I've had so many friends and family members and things who are in those creative environments and not seeing the signs for it. So that it's very good to go along to one of those and make sure you can
Yeah,
keep an eye on it.
and I think that's why I'm kind of like, go when this edit's done and I've turned it in, I know that, I probably won't have to do anything for it for, at least a few weeks because they'll read it, they'll, decide whether it needs a structural edit, probably will, and then the editor will go through, and then I'll get it, to start reworking it to their notes. But I think that'll be a couple of weeks. So I'm just
Hopefully you can
wanna
have a break.
play Disney Dreamlight Valley and, do a bit of bad gardening on the balcony because 'cause I'm bad at it, and
Sounds good.
try and get that mint back under control.
It does go crazy. So, where did this all start for you? Because you mentioned you were a promo producer. How did you get started in being a writer?
Um, I don't know.
Where did the spark come from then?
I'm not I'm not one of those people. I sometimes go to these conferences and the writers go, "Oh my god, I wrote my first book when I was 7," and yeah, that's not me. Um, but I have always loved writing. I have always absolutely adored it, and I loved it at school. I loved writing essays. I loved English. I loved reading. I just loved it. Um, I love words, and I always have, and I've always been okay at them. So I think that that has always just been something that I've enjoyed. I even love writing memos. Like I can really craft a memo for a couple of hours if I've got a bit of time. I just really enjoy writing words, any kind of words. I started quite extensively blogging. Um, Year it would be, but probably around 2010, I want to say, and that I think really started me looking more and more at writing because I was blogging a lot. And then I ended up writing for another very big blog and being their admin. And I think just being in that, right, having to turn out 2 articles a week for this blog, you know, I really liked it. And I was, doing a lot of writing and I was working really hard, because network TV can be a bit, and, I turned around and noticed one day that I wasn't writing anymore because I was so tired. I was just so tired, and you get just like your weeks are so crazy, and I had, people on a team and everybody's talking to you all the time, and I'd just go home and go, "I don't wanna talk to anybody, and I just wanna watch television," and, I just let me just zone completely out, and I just turned around and went, "Why am I not not doing that anymore?" Which is, I think, what moved me forward into the idea of maybe I should actually give myself a chance to do it because I really do love it and I miss it, but yeah, so I think it's just a general love of any kind of writing that I've always had, and it's just I just decided to, the moment just appeared to be the moment to pursue it. I don't even know why.
Did you immediately go for that moment, or did you say, "Okay, I'm gonna set some steps aside to, like, okay, the next 6 months I'm gonna move in with my parents, make this all work," or did you just go, "You know what, stuff it, let's go for it?"
Oh, yeah, let's go for it. I think I ran it past a couple of friends who I thought would go, "You cray cray," but they actually were like, "Oh, I think it's a great idea." I was like, "Oh,
Oh.
ooh, now I have to do it." And then I ran it past my mum,
Yeah.
and, I thought she'd go, "No way," and she was like, "Oh, I think that's a great idea." And so once I'd sort of had no one telling me I was being absolutely ridiculous, I just did it. I didn't
Amazing.
even give myself a break. I just, put my unit on the market, and I was like, "When that contract is signed and I know that that deal is happening, and then I'll resign." And I literally did it that day. I got the email from the real estate agent, go, "Done and done, your final signed, 6 weeks, you got 6 weeks to get out of the joint," and I went in and handed in my resignation. I told them what I was doing, so they were really supportive about it, and they were kinda like, "That's super exciting." They didn't try to ask me to stay because I basically said, "Done it, this is what I'm doing." And then they were like, "Would you be interested in freelance work?" And I was like, "Yeah." And, like, 6 weeks later, I was back there.
It's a different mindset. It's a shift.
Oh
It was
my gosh. I was like, "I should have freelanced so long ago. It's so much better." Oh my gosh, it was just so enjoyable just not being pulled into any meetings or anything. It was like, "Yay." Yeah, so I didn't really plan it. I just did it.
That's amazing.
I love that. I wish I had the courage. I think that's fantastic.
Uh, well, I'm lucky that it's turned out because, it could have gone very pear-shaped very fast, but I'm quite lucky. I know a lot of people who everybody says to me, but you work so hard," but I know so many writers who work so hard, I know a lot of writers who are very happy in the indie publishing world and just doing their own thing and controlling everything and are super happy. But there's a lot of writers who also really want to be in the traditional publishing world. That's was certainly my goal. And they work really hard too, and their stories are great as well. And there's just a little bit of luck involved that your story is the right story in front of the right person at the right moment.
Yeah. So overall, then, is can you see an easier path for somebody? Is there any advice you give for I suppose, an easy way to get into the industry, or it's
You
it's
work
really just
really
feeling your
hard.
way through and working hard? Yeah.
I've actually got a friend who's just starting his journey at the moment. So we've had quite a lot of conversations. He's written a excessively long fantasy, historic fantasy. I mean, it sounds amazing. It's incredibly detailed breakdowns. He's done. Like I was in awe at like when he showed me his character breakdowns. I was like, oh my, what? I like have a little notebook that I scribble stuff in. He had all these little like maps and literally maps. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
whoa. So we've it's been I've been having a lot of conversations with him lately and dragging him to things. You should go to this. And it's really it's just you gotta do the work. There is no easy way, and I honestly, I don't care how talented you are, you can be, you know, amazingly talented, but if you don't do the work, you're never gonna write them. There's a lot of people like, "Oh, it took me 4 years to write the first my first book," and yeah, that might be the case, and that might be a time issue, or that might just be, they just take that long. But you just have to do the work, and you have to learn the craft, and I think with writing, so many people go, "Oh," even to me, like, I go, "Yeah, I'm writing a book." I kind of still say it like that, sort of a bit embarrassed about it, so I don't even know why.
No.
It's so weird. I'm kinda like, "Oh, what a book." But I should be like, "I have
Eh,
written a book."
you're a published author.
No,
An award-winning author, come on.
yes. Um, but a lot of people say to me, "Oh, I wanna write a book. I've got this book in me. Oh, yeah, I've got this story. I'm gonna write a book." But, I don't think people, for the most part, understand how much work it is. It is so much work. Writing like my books are around 90,000. This one's annoyingly sitting at 996 or something at the moment, and I keep getting it down, and it keeps creeping back up. I'm like, "Yeah, creeping back up." But around 90, kind of 92, 93,000 words is sort of where my books sit. And that's a lot of words. It's a hell of a lot of words. But it's also just the craft. There's almost a science to some aspects of writing. And especially genre. If you write in a specific genre, there will be a science to that genre, and you have to learn about that, and you have to practice it, and you can never stop. Like, I'm doing a course at the moment while I'm editing, because I thought, oh, that's actually could be really kind of neat and handy. It's about showing and don't tell. And I thought that could be handy as I'm editing, because it's putting my brain into another space and making me think of other stuff. So you can't ever stop learning, I don't think. So I don't think there is an easy way. You just got to do the work, and you got to be prepared to learn it. You've got to surround yourself with craft books, do the courses. There's so many good little schools out there online and in person, and a lot of writing organisations like Writing New South Wales and Writing Queensland, and I'm a member of everybody, and they do great. Australian Society of Authors, they do great courses. Most of them online these days. And there's no real excuse not to learn your craft. It's out there, so you just have to do it, do the work. It's a lot of work, but you got to do it.
Got to do it.
One of the best things also about Australia is because it is online. It's open to everyone in even rural areas. Like where I'm based in at the moment, Kiama, they're having a writing festival in a week or so, and it's huge. There's so many people attending and so many different things happening.
I've seen that
Um,
on Instagram. I think some of the writers that I kind of know a little bit, I think, are going down for it.
yeah, yeah. It looks amazing. I'm trying to make the time to go.
It'll be great. It'll be really fun, I think.
Yeah. What would you say is your favorite thing about all of it?
The writing, I don't, like, I really just, I love getting lost in the story. What I really love is when, I'm, there's a school of thought that there's two kinds of writers. There's what's called a pantser, and there's what's called a plotter. So if you're a pantser, you just get in and you go by the seat of your pants, right? You just, you know. And if you're a plotter, you really work it out. Before you start writing, you break your whole story. I mean, there's plotting and then there's next level plotting. I've done a course with a very successful Australian author who she plots each chapter down to each, like, paragraphed, broken. It's astonishing. Like, I've done a few courses with and I did a plotting course, and she was talking about it, and I was like, I'm just, like, hyperventilating from the stress of that, just even thinking about it, but she's very successful, and there's a lot of books out there, so it works for her. It would never I'm not capable of that. But what I and I'm probably what they call either a plantser. So, basically, I pants like crazy, and then I have to stop and figure out where it's going because I know it's gonna end. I know basically what's gonna happen, sort of the inciting incident, and so have all that, but I kind of need to figure out, how the little beats along the way. So I pants and then I plot. So I plan. So, but I love it when I'm pantsing. Sounds so weird.
Oh, I love this.
And I'm just like, I've got this story in my head, and I've got this character in my head, and I'm just pantsing, and the character just goes whoosh, completely takes over. And it's really bizarre when it happens. I was writing a story, and I'm not even kidding. I thought, well, she's gonna come out of this place. She's gonna turn left, and I mean, not obviously, I'm not gonna write she turned left, but in my brain, and she did something completely different that I didn't even know she was gonna do, wasn't in my brain. Off she went, did this thing, and I was like, and it was really great. And then she came back and she was like, "Oh my god, that was really freaky." And I was like, "Oh my god, that was so freaky." So it was just a really, and that's very exciting. Like, I think a plotter would probably, break into a cold sweat at the idea of that. But I think most pantsers have probably had a fairly big experience about their characters taking over the story for a little bit, and you've gotta control it a little bit because they can be a bit wayward, but it is super, super fun when you think you're gonna be writing one thing. "I'm gonna write this chapter this day, and this, and this is gonna happen," and then something else entirely happens, and it all goes in a different direction, and that's really fun, and I love that stuff, and I'm just vanishing into it.
It's so exciting that you're almost telling yourself a story.
It
You know?
is almost like that, because the characters do start to have their own life as they develop. I mean, it sounds ridiculous because they're obviously developing from you, but they seem to be developing. I sit here and I bawl my eyes out
Oh.
when my characters have a moment. I'm like, "Oh, it's so good for them." And I'm like, "What are you talking about, lady? You just wrote it." You know? But it's like they do start to live and breathe, and they do start to develop, and you get proud of them because they did this thing that you never thought they'd be capable of, and it's like, "Good on you, guy," and it's like, "Doy," you know, I made him do that, but it's very, very weird, but, they do have their own life a little bit.
It's so fantastic to hear that, like, because when you read books, that's how you feel. Like, you get a good chapter and you feel that proud moment. So it's great to hear that as the author, you're getting that emotion out of it as
Oh,
well.
yeah, I cry, like, the book that's coming out, I have not been able to, and I have read it so many times, oh my god, and I have not been able to get through that last chapter without crying at the happily. I'm gonna tell you, it's a happily ever after, it's a romance, of course.
Yeah.
And I can't get through it without crying, and I'm like, "This is ridiculous." The book I'm editing at the moment, I've cried in twice,
Oh,
and I'm like, "This is silly, but it's so beautiful." And
I think that's
so,
you must be producing gold then, to be able to show
oh,
your emotions and then even have that reaction yourself. It's amazing.
I think it's like I did like a Zoom thing last night for this course, and we were talking about who you write for. There's a theory that you should have one reader in your head. This sounds really television to me as well, like that you should have that audience member in your head when you're making that show or that promo and stuff like that. I never did that. But there were a couple of the writers in this group were saying, "Yeah, you should have that one writer in your head." And I've got what I call a trusted reader, that everything I do, once it's at a point where, usually the end of the second draft, I flick it off to my trusted reader, and she will read it as a reader, not as a she's not a writer, she's a really prolific reader. And she'll read it as a reader, and she'll just give me some very upper level stuff around story and character that connected to her as a reader or didn't connect to her as a reader, or that she would have liked to. She felt like that scene ended too soon and she was just getting into it and it disappeared. And it's just like really kind of very upper level stuff. But I find it helpful before I then go into more of a craft feedback, just to have like that sort of story feedback. And they were like, "Oh, is she who you think about when you write?" And I was like, "No. I think about me. I think you think about it's coming out of you. So
Yeah.
you're not really writing for someone. I'm not writing for someone else. Me personally, I don't do that. I'm not writing a genre that I'm not connected to. I'm not writing a genre because that's popping at the moment. Like, I'm not gonna write an ice hockey rom-com because, like, they are so big like now, it's just insane, but
Really?
it's wild. But I'm probably not gonna write that because that's I'm probably not gonna write that. Um, Having said that, no, I'm definitely but, so my feedback to them, or my thoughts to them, was that you just write the story that you wanna tell and that is coming out of you and that is in your heart. And if you can write it from that space, then I think you'll connect with a reader somewhere, because it's real. And I think, we experience any kind of art, you can tell if it's real. You can tell if it's been created with love.
Yeah, if you're making it for someone else, you're never going to really understand that person, but only you understand you. So if you can put your own desires and passion out there in such a beautiful way and show people, it's, one step closer to them actually knowing you. And it's the other way around, which works better than trying to say, I'm going to try and understand this guy on the other side of the world that's reading my book.
I mean, yeah, exactly. But I mean, people do write stuff that's completely outside of the realm of their understanding. And so, I mean, that's the wonders of fiction and research and stuff. I mean, I'm sure my friend who's writing a fantasy Roman historical thing, that's not his reality. I know that. But but it's obviously something he's interested in, and that's when I was sort of, like, saying, "I can't imagine me ever writing a historical romance," because that's not even a genre I read that much. I've read a few, but it's not, like, my go-to genre.
And so that's sort of all the positives. What about the negatives? What sort of happens in this role, this job that you just struggle with, or the biggest challenge?
I think the biggest challenge is doubt. I think because writing is really, I mean, for me, I know that people have writing buddies, and I'm in writing groups.
Mm.
Um, I'm in a couple of writing groups, and there's one that we meet monthly, and Romance Writers of Australia, we're all in like these great big email groups, depending upon where you are in your writing, and they're amazing because it's just like this constant stream of information and feedback and support and stuff like that. Um, but in reality, when you're writing, it's a very um, solo thing.
Mm.
Unless you're writing with someone, which some people do write in tandem. I've just read a book called Emma of 83rd Street, which is a um, updated version of Jane Austen's Emma set on 83rd Street. Obviously. And it's adorable. It's adorable. And it was written by two women. And working together, a couple of friends came up with the idea and they just wrote it together. So people do write like that. But the most of us write on our own, and you're sitting in a room writing, and you think it's okay, but what if it's not okay? And you have like these days, like I should say, I have these days where I'll like be editing I don't know, that chapter, that was like, I'll go to bed going, "Oh my god, no, this is the worst thing ever," and that chapter's just horrific, and I'm just gonna have to start it again. Like, and I'm all up in my head, and I get up in the morning, I'm like, "Right, let me read it again, and we'll start again," and then I read it and go, "What the hell was I talking about? This is actually pretty good." So, there's just this, like, really big doubt, and I think where I'm at now, because I've got a book coming out
Yeah.
that was really well received by the publisher. They're very positive about it, and they've been really lovely. They're so great, and they've just been super positive and excited. And for the most part, the feedback has been like, I think it's at like a 4 or something on Goodreads at the moment. And so like for the most part, the feedback's been very positive, and everybody thinks it's kind of adorable. That puts a lot of doubt into your head, because then when you're working on a new story and it's not that story, it's not going to be that story. It's not set in a cute animal shelter. It's a totally different story. And so that sort of doubt of whether is it actually any is it any good, or is it just rubbish? I think that's kind of like the hardest bit for me anyway. I mean, nothing else about the work for me is particularly hard. I'm come up with ideas fairly freely. I think having years of having to come up with ideas on the spot probably is has been quite helpful. Things like, um, I'm not really phased when I'm being asked to put together a pitch or something really quickly, because I've done that as well for years and years, and even the feedback kind of thing. I've suffered through some really horrific feedback over my promo producing career, so I'm not that all those kind of things that I think some people might find very difficult. For me, it's old news, but the doubt that you are able to seed in yourself is the hardest thing, and it's all your fault. Just shut up and write your story. And but that to me is the hardest thing, and that is the thing that I'm really struggling with at the moment. Out of everything, is just keeping focused on belief that what I'm doing is going to be okay.
Yeah. And do you have you developed any strategies for, you feel it creeping up, you can feel it coming. Do you have any strategies to pull yourself out of that?
No,
Not yet.
yell at myself. No, um, I think I just go, just shut up and
Just keep moving.
keep
Yeah.
moving. I mean, I'm just moving forward the whole time, and just being as organized as I can. Trying to make sure I break it. And there's a board behind me, all the chapters broken, and just making sure that I have everything broken and hitting beats that I think it should hit, and then it'll work itself out. I mean, it's never a first draft. The first draft is always nonsense, and then the second draft is getting closer to. Then your third draft is probably in the vicinity of where the book's going to be, and then of course I've got a publisher, so then they have editors, and then you work with the editor, and they make sure that it's not ridiculous. Or do things like, because it's Day Love, that, there was some, like, pop culture references in it, and so we had to have very big conversations about whether the pop culture references were relevant to the age group of the characters in the book, and what language they would be using, words-wise, with the like, that was really fantastically interesting to me. I was it's made and it was, as I said, you gotta keep learning. It made me super aware of that kind of thing. If my characters are 30, what are the words they're saying? What were they watching on television? What was their favorite song? If I say this, they love this song, I'm like, "What? I've got to go up. I've got to find out, when was that released? When was it a hit? And how old were they at the time?" So I mean, I probably wasn't thinking of any of that kind of thing before, but I am now, you know. So you have people who will pull you into line.
Yeah. You seem to have your own natural strategies though. You say you have none, but the act of just keep moving and keep carrying on is such a big thing. So many people just stop, and it causes a big issue with that. You've got your board, which is your reassurance that you do have something there and something to look at and look back at, right? And you do have that self knowledge as well to go, come on, Amy, you can do this tomorrow. um I always like to share a nice negative thought metaphor is turning that negative thought, understanding that it's there, and actually turning it into like a little gremlin that you beat up in your head, and then it makes you laugh, and you go you go further from there because you've changed the subject in your brain. You've stopped the train of thought that's on, and you've jumped onto another one. So yeah, that's just one that always comes to mind with
Ooh,
any of
I will definitely try that when I have that little shuddering panic attack in my room, and I'm like, "Oh, no," and then I go, "Hush, hush, 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 hush."
just turn it into a great character that you can annoy the hell out of.
Yeah.
Is there any advice that you would give to anybody starting out or looking to try and become an author?
I think, like I said before, I think you need to, know that you're gonna have to do the work. You can have a great story, and you can be a really good writer, but there's very few writers who are just, naturally brilliant. But there's a lot of good writers who can become very good, with the work. And I think that's what you have to do. And I think, to be honest, if that's what you want to do, just do it. Find the, because that's another thing. People say, "Oh, I really want to write, but I don't have the time." Well, a lot of people don't have the time. A lot of people are juggling a full time job and a bunch of kids and stuff while they're writing. Um, Not everybody gets to do it full time. Most people don't. Even like even like quite successful authors might not, necessarily be able to rely solely on that because there's not a lot of money. And unless get a really big bestseller or something, unless you're like Colleen Hoover at the moment, who's like, oh my God, everywhere. Um, so I think my advice would just be, if that's what you want to do it, but but commit to it, because it's hard work, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of learning, it's a steep curve. There's so much more to it than you think there is. So, so, so much more. And just learn. Find a group too. That I think that's a really important thing. Find a little community that you can get support from and ask questions with what? She's a writer. Uh, and, find those people, because that will really help as well. You don't they don't have to be in real life. If they're in real life, awesome, but, like, most of us don't have those.
Yeah.
Um,
How did you find yours?
well, I joined Romance Writers of Australia. Like, when I decided I was gonna do this, I literally just Googled, like, every single writing group and organization and joined a bunch of them. And it was a really great thing to do because, for a start, places like Writing New South Wales do fantastic courses, online and in the funny old building in the old asylum out there in Lilyfield or wherever they are. I
Yeah.
just went to their speculative fiction festival a couple of weeks ago. It was great, absolutely great. So they do a lot of really fantastic stuff. Um, so I just started joining stuff, and then when I joined Romance Writers of Australia, they automatically hook you up. Like, they go, "You're an aspiring." I don't know when, but they will ask me at some point to move to emerging because I've got like a couple of things on the boil, and I'm like, "No, I don't want to move." I like my people, but they kind of like shove you on to the next level. Um, but that was really, really great because, even though, it's all online, I met a whole bunch of them last year because I got to go to the in-person conference last year. The year before that, it was on the Gold Coast, and we were still behind the border lockage, And then the year before that, it was virtual. So last year it was in Fremantle. It was the first one I was able to go to. This year it's in Sydney. Yay! Um, and that was great because I got to meet people. So I think you just need to and find local writing groups. There's lots of local writing groups. I go to the Northern Beaches writing group. They meet once a month. I get there when I can, and it's just great. Everybody's at a different stage of their journey. Everybody's writing different stuff. There's poets and people writing all sorts of different things, and everybody just talks about their work. They critique their work mostly at this thing, and yeah, so I would say that's how you find your community. You've gotta you've got like everything else, you've gotta do the work and find them.
I can imagine in a group like that, being able to actually stand up and pitch your work rather than sitting in your own home environment can also help with that. The self satisfaction of stuff getting forward or seeing how it works. If you didn't have such a great friend who reads your stuff or things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Pitching's a whole 'nother ball game as well, because that's something that I always say to people, just pitch. If you've got a manuscript ready,
Mhm.
pitch. We're lucky in Australia in that I'm not agented. So we're lucky in Australia that you you can be and not be agented and actually get a good contract with a big publisher.
Brilliant.
There are some publishers who don't take you on agented, but not many, and most of them will have like a Friday, every Friday a month, or the first Monday of every month, or whatever they open for open submissions. But we also have, great things like Romance Writers Australia do pitching, GenreCon in Queensland does pitching, and the Australian Society of Authors 3 times a year do virtual literary speed dating, where you can do a 3-minute pitch.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that sounds really short, but it's actually great. And I have done so many of them, and it's so good. It's so good.
It was so much fun.
It's I love pitching. Like, people are like, "I'm so terrified of pitching." I'm like, "I love it because I get to talk about the thing that I love and that I'm really proud of and excited about to someone who honestly just wants to find the next great book." They're hoping that what I say to them is what they want, so they're super excited to hear about it. So, and you've got them captive, a big publisher, for 3 minutes. You know, my book I pitched at the Romance Writers of Australia convention last year in Fremantle to, the publisher at Simon& and Schuster. I pitched it in person and they picked it up. I mean, you just never know. I had a
Yeah.
7-minute pitch, which I thought I completely blew, and then two weeks, I had the flop sweats, and, it was terrible. I'm never like that. But anyway, 2 weeks later, she asked me for the full manuscript. 2 months after that, they were talking to me about signing it. So you just, you never know. And we're lucky that those kind of things are available to us. So I do recommend, that's another thing that I recommend. If you've got, but you have to have a finished manuscript. And if it's ready to go, because it's got to go, like about a week later, they'll want it. So a pitch. Go to the Australian Society of Authors, join them. That's always a good first step, and then see what they've got to offer.
Brilliant. I love the way you think about a pitch. I just want to make everybody think that way. Yeah.
I love doing them. I genuinely love doing them. I mean, I won't have to do one for a little bit, but I really, I enjoy them. I get nervous, but I get sort of excited nervous, because it's true. They want it. They're like, "Gosh, I hope she's got the next great book. Tell
Yeah.
me all about it." And I was like, "Okay."
That's brilliant.
All right. So we're almost at the end, mindful of the time. I could talk to you all night. But education, you've already mentioned, you've done lots of short courses, you've done a lot of background research, talked to a lot of people. If you had to recommend one thing, one course, is there anything that stands out that was pivotal?
From a pitching point of view, I would say you absolutely have to do the Australian Society of Authors Pitch Perfect course at least once. I've done it about 4 times. Really, really sensational. Um, it's great. Other than that, I don't know. I've done so many courses. I haven't really done any longer ones. I've done some that maybe have run over about 6 weeks, I think. Uh, yeah. I haven't done any really long ones, and I didn't go to uni, and I don't have a degree or anything like that. I was too busy being a videotape operator at the time, but I think just look at your genre, look at different aspects, do a course on plotting, do a course on, um, how to research, do a course on how to write a synopsis, do a course on that's really hard, it's really important. Do a course on, um, author branding, also massively important. Everybody wants you to be on social. You've got to be on TikTok. You've got to be posting. You've got to generate an audience. It's one of the first things they said to me. How many people you got on TikTok? I said, oh, 16. And they're like, oh, I have a few more now, but still not many. But that's important because people it probably there's not a lot of money in publishing, so, it's like they don't have a lot of marketing money unless you're a massive book, unless you're like Spare or, Britney Spears' new book or something like that, then obviously there's gonna be a truckload of money. But for most books, you get your marketing and they're doing fantastic marketing for mine, but it's finite. And so it's really up to you, and in a it's in a period, it's launch. So it's up to you to really build it and then really build it out. So you have to have an author brand, you have to know who you are, you have to know who you write. So I actually think that that's a really important skill, and there's courses in that, of how to kind of develop that voice, and also all your social, your website, all that kind of stuff. Gotta have it all.
Seems to be such a big thing in most industries nowadays. It's just how do you professionally present yourself online and in different environments? And actually doing that task of professionally presenting yourself out to the world is a really good task to present yourself to your boss as to what you do, how you do it, how to get a salary increase, how to improve your annual reviews. It's putting a mirror back on yourself and answering all those hard questions that you expect a manager or a boss to ask of you. So even personal branding in any case seems to be something that's just jumping up and down nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's yeah, and I know a lot of, and I mean, I know some authors who don't do it, but at all, and I mean, that's fine, and I'm sure they're successful as well. But I do know that if you go on there, like I mean, all the authors, the big romance authors that are very poppy at the moment, which is like Tessa Bailey and Ali Hazelwood and Emily Henry, Colleen Hoover, they're all really big romance writers right now. They're all on everything, and you're seeing their life, and as long as they're really genuine and stuff like that, and they're promoting their upcoming books and stuff, even though they're really big, so they're out there.
One thing that might help you with your outward promotion, film festivals are always looking for shorts, and there's a whole array of wonderful independent festivals, and you'd be really good at writing short pitch promos. But if you did the sort of four-liner short stories or anything like that, you could literally be attached to something, one of the bigger festivals, and people be making your movie over and over again to be part of that category.
Oh,
And
that was
there's
fun.
That does sound fun.
My big dream is actually to get my book made into, like, a Netflix rom-com
Oh,
or something, 'cause they do, like, a lot of those really cute rom-coms on Netflix and Stan as well, they both do them, and, like, that's, like, a really I mean, it's a pie in the sky kinda dream, but I go,
you got to aim there. Yeah.
"They could do that."
you should join Vixens to Vixens if you're not already part of it.
I'm not.
It's
Vixen
a producing group in Sydney. It's got some really wonderful independent producers, two of which I know have made rom-coms in Netflix. So
There
yeah,
you
you've
go.
and you've got the producer title. It's got lots of stuff in there that's really interesting. The membership's awesome. It's just yeah, it's such a beautiful community. I'm
I'll
sure
look
someone would
it
love to make your
up.
book.
I will look it up.
So our last question is, what is the inspirational quote that keeps you going?
I sent you one from Walt Disney. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. And I think that that is a really, really great quote because I kind of feel like that's what I did. But also, I'm like a massive Disney fan. So Disney. I'm a huge Disney fan. I have ears nearly all the way around my room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, no, I'm massive. Um, but I really like that quote because I feel like that's what I did.
Amazing. Awesome. It is. It's, you're moving it all forward. Yeah, it's great. Well, it's been absolutely amazing having you on. We have talked a lot longer than usual, but you are so
Really.
interesting and you have
Never.
so much going on. And I think we definitely bring you back for promo producing and just to talk about your supernatural podcast. I'm
Oh,
sorry we're
yeah.
gonna have to.
Supernatural. So sad.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. I look forward to seeing it, and
Yeah.
hopefully I will not be like, "Oh, no."
You've been listening to Roxy and Nate. Thanks for tuning in to A to Z Jobs. And always remember, it's your career and it's up to you to shape it. So dream big, make bold moves, stay curious, and keep exploring. Check out our website at thecareerchangecoaches.com for more resources, tools, and upcoming training.
Thank you for joining us on this journey. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode of A to Z Jobs. Remember, your dream career could be just one episode away.